Morning, everybody. Hi. It's June 3rd. I am back at Rollins Savanna, which I've been coming to just about most weekends since early March. Actually, really all year, because my last video I shot from January through February, and then I took a couple of weeks off. And then I wanted to show this same forest preserve as it moves from winter into spring. That ended up being a little bit trickier than I thought it was going to be, because every time I thought spring was here, we'd have another snowstorm. It was back and forth, more than usual. I mean, everybody says, oh, the weather, you want the weather to change in Illinois, wait 5 minutes. Except for that's what my trumpet teacher said in New York, that's what people said in Maine. I feel like that's what people say wherever they live. But anyways, my point is, the weather was particularly capricious this year. But it was a lot of fun. I got some new critters that I hadn't been able to film before. And I learned some more things about filming wildlife, or videoing wildlife. I really shouldn't say film, since it's on a digital card. But I hope you enjoy it. Stick around, check out what I've got, and I'll see you around.
The beginning of March seemed like spring was right around the corner. The snow was gone. The birds were returning. In another few weeks, surely the grass would begin to poke through. Even the ice had thawed. Well, most of it. The vestiges of winter were definitely still apparent, but the birds knew that better days were coming soon. And they were ready. A few days later, we were right back to winter. Who said this was okay? I'm out of here. This solitary buck seems to be as put out by the weather as I was. Or else something was chasing him, but I never saw any evidence of that. Sandhill cranes are kind of new to me. Although sandhills do sometimes visit Maine, they rarely get up as far east as Acadia, and I never saw one before moving to Illinois. They winter in Texas, Florida, and Mexico. These guys seem to be wondering if maybe they headed north a little too early after all. According to All About Birds, sandhill cranes form extremely large flocks, into the tens of thousands. Sandhill cranes mate for life, choosing their partners based on dancing displays. Displaying birds stretch their wings, pump their heads, bow, and leap into the air. Although each female usually lays 2 eggs, only one nestling typically survives to fledge. Not far from the sandhills, this northern harrier is engaged in its morning ritual hunt, gliding low over the shoreline, looking for tasty rodents to snatch up. Unlike sandhill cranes, harriers are not particularly monogamous. All About Birds says that male northern harriers can have as many as 5 mates at once, though most only have 1 or 2. The male provides most of the food for his mates and their offspring, while the females incubate the eggs and brood the chicks. Remember in the last video when I said that white-tailed deer lose their antlers in the winter? I guess this guy didn't get the memo. His antlers were still going strong when I observed the herd on March 20th. This was one of those mornings where my coffee didn't really kick in right away. I accidentally set my camera to 120 frames per second here, which is why we have this buttery smooth slow-mo. Took me much longer than I'd care to admit to figure out what was going on. Still, Looks pretty cool. Nice and dramatic. This area is where I most often spotted the deer. I'm pretty sure they slept here many nights. Looks like this morning they were just starting to wake up and get to the hard work of foraging in the frost. Down by Mill Creek, the sun has risen a little higher and things are looking a little more like spring. Everybody down here just seems a little more chipper than last week. These wood ducks certainly seem optimistic. Wood ducks are one of the only ducks with strong claws that can grip and perch on tree branches. They nest in tree cavities, and apparently particularly like nest boxes, as the right size hole can be tough to find. These little guys also seem to have a lot of energy. This morning they just couldn't contain themselves. Their antics put on a pretty good show for all onlookers. Though at times I did get the sense that the mallards regarded their smaller cousins with just a touch of exasperation. Of course, no bird exudes dignity quite like a swan. I don't know what the other birds think about swans, but speaking anthropomorphically, it really does look like they rule the lake. Finally, I got one. This coyote ran across my path just as I arrived at Rollins Savanna on April 9th. I didn't even have time to set up my tripod, so I scooted along the path as quick as I could, hoping to get a glimpse from a distance. Luckily for me, he spent about a half hour in the same spot, munching his breakfast. I'm not sure exactly what he's eating, but I think it's a bird of some sort. We're down by Washington Street, which is probably a prime nest raiding area. I really wanted to get footage of a coyote all year, but I wasn't sure if it was likely, as they tend to range all over, and I haven't been able to figure out any clear pattern yet. Not to mention the whole nocturnal thing. Plus, I don't know if you've noticed, but they're pretty quick. WildlifeIllinois.org says they can sprint at up to 43 miles per hour. Also, when they want to go incognito, they really blend in with their surroundings. April 24th. Full-on, no-holds-barred spring is finally upon us, and the red-winged blackbirds are out in force letting everyone know. Northern flickers are the second type of woodpecker I've seen this year. I'm not sure why I never saw a glimpse of one in the first video. I had assumed that they migrate, but according to All About Birds, they are year-round residents. They're kind of weird little guys. Although a flicker can climb up the trunks of trees and hammer on wood just like other woodpeckers, the northern flicker prefers to hunt for ants on the ground. Okay, here's where I might come off as pretty dumb. Fair warning. I think this is a muskrat, but it's kind of hard to tell without a clear view of its tail. The Washington Post, of all places, says that you're likely to see the muskrat's whole body when it's swimming, as opposed to a beaver, which usually just shows its head. To make things even more confusing, apparently muskrats often share beaver lodges with the beavers, so you can't even really tell by watching where he lives. Canada geese are everywhere this time of year. One of my plans for this video was to focus on some goslings to show that spring has, well, sprung. There's nothing cuter than those little fluffballs in a line scrambling to keep up with mom and dad. At this point, I was really looking for nests and babies, but I'm just not seeing anything. Maybe the late spring is the culprit? It's May. Cue Julie Andrews, or Effie White, or whatever musical theater spring May meme reference you prefer. Things are looking much more green, and I'm on a mission to find some babies. And I sort of succeeded. To me, this looks like a mama and her almost full-grown fawn. The spotted sandpipers are taking full advantage of the recent heavy rains. And the geese are still teasing me with the prospect of a nest. Where are the babies? Nah, I don't know. But here is a pretty yummy worm. Oh, there it is, yeah. Oh, no, put it back. Here's another bird I never remember seeing in Maine, the American goldfinch. I suspect that I might just be really unobservant, as All About Birds makes it clear that these guys are all over Maine. You'd think I'd notice something this colorful, but yeah, I guess I just wasn't looking. No babies for these guys yet. They don't nest until June or July. Moving on. It's not a baby, but the snowy egret is a definite sign that spring is really here. Egrets spend the winter in South America. Lake County is pretty close to the northern edge of their migration. They can go as far north as about halfway into Wisconsin, but that's it. Once they're here, snowy egrets are pretty easy to find, as they are large, bright white, and pretty slow. I saw this one flying overhead and had little difficulty tracking him down. In fact, I think I had an easier time finding him than he's having finding any fish. Keep at it, buddy. He'll get one. Oh. Nah. Want to hear something that blew my mind? According to All About Birds, the mourning dove is the most widespread and abundant game bird in North America. Every year, hunters harvest more than 20 million, but the mourning dove remains one of our most abundant birds, with a U.S. population estimated at 350 million. What do you do with them? Mourning dove stew? Wow. Another week, another chance. For babies! This guy seems to be on sentry duty, and he clearly takes it very seriously. And there we go, folks. One baby. Why only one in the whole pond? What gives? Was it the weather? My friend the coyote? An average Canada goose clutch contains 2 to 8 eggs. One gosling seems like pretty bad luck. He's pretty cute though. Look at him stealing food out of his mama's bill. He's hoping his parents take good care of him this year. Seems like they're doing a good job so far. I ran into them a week later on a bike ride. I was on the bike, not the geese. And Dad was decidedly impolite.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that. I learned a lot, as I said at the beginning of the video. A lot of what I learned, I think, is more about how to film, how to shoot video of critters. And I haven't found a lot of resources on how to do that. There was a ton of stuff online about how to photograph birds and wildlife and stuff, like, you know, how to get what $14,000 lens did you want to get if you really are serious and stuff. Most of what I found online about how to video wildlife is very kind of elementary, and it seems like it's one of those things still where you either know it or you don't. And the stuff that's been written that I found is very like, well, get a telephoto lens and try to be stable. And I'm like, well, yeah. But I did learn some stuff about how to keep it steady. For instance, if it's windy, take your lens hood off the big lens, because it adds another 3 or 4 inches on there, and turn it around so it doesn't catch as much wind. It acts like a sail. And then also, very important is the coffee ratio. Because if you don't drink enough coffee in the morning before you go out at 5:30, 6:30, whatever it is, you might bring your tripod but leave your camera. or bring your camera but leave your tripod, or just leave the whole thing and just walk off into the woods and say, wait, what am I doing here? But if you drink too much coffee, you can't stay for very long. So you got to find that ratio, and that's something I'm still kind of working on. Oh yeah, future me, interjecting. As far as locations go, I still prefer the north end of Rollins Savanna, coming in from Drury Lane. If you're photographing, there's a lot of advantages to coming in from Washington Street. There's that boardwalk that goes right through there. You get very close to the birds, but it's also so close to Washington Street that for film, for video, there's a lot of car noises coming back and forth. And then you can also see the reflections of the cars going by on the road in the water. So for photo, you can just get your shot in between the cars and it's all good, or it just becomes kind of a color blur. It's not a big deal because everything else is, you're focusing on the animal. For video, I found that pretty distracting. So while I really like coming down there, and some of the stuff that I got, like the coyote was right down there by Washington Street, I think in general I prefer this side because it's a little bit more isolated from the roads. You can hear the cars and stuff like that. I'm gonna hear a siren right now and a big engine over that way, but it's not overwhelming like it is when you're right by the road. It's off in the background in the distance. So that would be my advice if you're wanting to video in Rollins Savanna yourself. Stick to the north end. There's some really nice locations here. And if you walk a little bit further down, you get to the creek and you can get right down by the water, set up a spot there without having to get off the path, because the signs all do say stay on the path. And I like to follow rules. Rules set us free. Okay, future me signing off. It's a fun process. I don't know whether I'll be doing much more this summer because I'm heading up to Maine for a good chunk of the summer, which I always do, but I'll probably shoot some stuff in Acadia because that's my favorite place. Stick around, and in a month or two, I'll probably have another video. Thanks. See you around. I do like those birdies.